Well, I'm super excited to share with you all a brand new online ministry for women, and I would love to share part of my story with you. So about 5 years ago, I found myself in a pretty painful season of my life. I felt really stuck and disconnected in my relationships and unhappy with my life in general. I didn't know exactly what was wrong. I couldn't quite put my finger on it. So I did what most women do when they feel that way. I read a bunch of Christian books and I talked to my friends and I told my husband that I thought we needed to go to marriage counseling, and we went and we tried, and none of it seemed to make a difference for me. I think that there was some good advice and some not so good advice, but most of it was just not nearly practical enough for me to make changes in my life. So I remember being really frustrated and exhausted from trying and resentful that I seemed to be trying to do everything and it wasn't working. So it really led to a low moment where I recall looking at my husband and asking him through tears if he even still loved me. And I remember the defeat on his face as he sighed and said, "Julie, I'll try harder to show you that I love you." And I really had this sense that he didn't know how to make me happy. And the truth was that I didn't know how to make me happy. And so I'm really not sure how he was supposed to, but it was a pretty painful spot to be in, to feel so helpless and hopeless. And I really needed God to intervene at that point. And you know, he's always so faithful to do that, to provide the right resource at the right time. So about a week later, after that really painful moment, I met a new friend after small group, and we had a conversation, and I mentioned that, marriage is hard sometimes. And she said, I used to think so too. And then I found these skills and practices that have really helped me in my relationship. And then she said this cute thing. She says, "I don't know if you're in the place to hear it," which I took as a personal challenge, but I found her way of being to be very appealing. And so I gave it a shot. And I began to experiment with some different skills and practices over the next weeks, and really began to see my family and my husband respond differently to me. And they were really practical things. They were all biblically aligned skills and ideas, but they were so practical and things I could actually do and say and change about how I was showing up in my life. So fast forward to about a year later, and I began to have a new desire, which was to share the breakthroughs I was having with other women in my life that I knew were struggling and suffering in similar ways. So I enrolled in relationship coach training so that, number one, I could get even better at practicing these skills for cultivating intimacy and connection in my relationships, and also be able to coach and support women who wanted to try to do the same. So the vision for On My Paper is to support and inspire women who want to try to refresh or restore or remake their relationships. But here's the thing, it only works from my paper. And my paper is a metaphor for everything that God has given me responsibility for and control over. Everything that I think, I say, I believe, I do, my reactions to my world, and all the things I had been trying were mostly trying to control other people and situations that were largely out of my control, which was exhausting. And you may relate to that feeling. I have to say though that these skills were God's provision for me to practically implement biblical truth in a really changed how I was showing up in my relationships, and made margin for my life to begin to change and my relationships to begin to change. I really invite you to check out and follow On My Paper and what's evolving there. I don't know all that God's going to do, but I have a deep conviction that it can change your relationship like it's changed mine, and there really is hope. And thanks so much for just hearing my heart on that.